Hello there everyone, welcome back to a brand new video. Today I'm going to talk about Star Wars The Mandalorian and Grogu. I finally watched it, obviously, and I kinda enjoyed it, but let's talk about it. Obviously the directors and the writers of this beautiful film were Jon Favreau, who directed it and co-wrote it, Dave Filoni and Noah Clure, I think, or that's how you pronounce his name or her name, are co-writers as well. Budget, obviously it was around 165 million, box office about 250 million worldwide, solid but not a smash hit. And reception, mixed to positive. People liked Mando and Grogu, music and some character beats, criticized obviously thin plot and big TV episode feel. Right, obviously after the fall of the Empire, Din Djarin and Grogu are working with the New Republic, hunting down scattered Imperial warlords. They're recruited to rescue Rotta the Hutt, yes, Jabba's kid from the Clone Wars, and obviously the son of Jabba the Hutt from Return of the Jedi, from a criminal neo-imperial nexus in exchange for intel on a high-value target. Obviously, Act 1, The Job. Din and Grogu at Delphi Base, briefed by Colonel Ward, played by Sigourney Weaver. Mission framed as one last big hunt with political stakes for the New Republic. Act 2, obviously the crawl through the underworld. Journey to Hutt Space, Nal Hutta, Criminal Worlds and World Warlord Pockets, right? Rotta is less a joke and more a tragic weaponized asset used by warlords as leverage. Grogu's force growth becomes central. He senses what Rotta has become and pushes Din toward a more Jedi-adjacent moral line. Obviously, the choice, Act 3, big siege, rescue, set piece, New Republic versus warlords, right? Din caught between bounty hunter pragmatism and parental responsibility. Din chooses Grogu and the Foundling Code over pure mercenary logic again, but this time with galactic consequences. Who gets Rotta, who controls the Hutt vacuum. Ending is deliberately semi-closed. The mission is done, but the galaxy feels more unstable, not less. Obviously, it's very much the Mandalorian and tone, episodic feeling, sequences, obviously creature moments, side quests fold into a larger thorough line, rather than a tightly wound movie plot. That's both its charm and its biggest structural weakness. Obviously, Favreau and Filoni, what they're actually doing here, right? Jon Favreau, right, he was the director and co-writer and producer as well. Obviously, strength on display, character chemistry between Din and Grogu, small gestures, obviously cockpit scenes and quiet beats. Pacing that feels like the show, relaxed, willing to hang out in a location just to vibe, and comfort with volume style shooting and hybrid practical CGI creatures. The film often feels like a 3-episode arc stitched together, not a story built for a theatrical spine. Action is readable but rarely jaw-dropping. Some critics called the visuals TV plus rather than truly cinematic. Right, let's talk about Dave Filoni. Obviously, what feels Filoni-ish? Bringing back Rotta, Zeb and Ambo and other animated era connective tissue. Thematic focus, obviously found family, codes of honor, and tension between warrior cultures and peacekeeping. Grogu's coming of age arc. He's still cute, but he starts to make real choices and obviously tries to make his own responsibility and be seen, right? Right, together Favreau and Filoni are clearly trying to do things at once. Obviously give fans more Mando and a safe, familiar package, and quietly repositioning this corner of the timeline as the backbone of future theatrical Star Wars movies. Obviously they succeed more at the first one than the second one, but the groundwork is there. Obviously, let's talk about the box office, right? The box office and its competition. The numbers, obviously the budget was 165 million. Worldwide gross, obviously roughly 250 million to 252 million. That's not a flop, but it's also not a triumphant Star Wars is back in theaters moment that Disney probably wanted after 7-year gap since the rise of Skywalker. I have to say The Mandalorian and Grogu was very safe. It's kind of like a Hollywood strategy, right? To publish a movie, bring it out there, and obviously the next one will probably do much better than that. And obviously the new Star Wars Starfighter movie will be releasing next year as well. So there we go. Obviously with Backrooms, He-Man and Obsession in its mix, those three are for now more in the hypothetical parallel release bucket than confirmed, obviously. So let's not treat them as a genre competitors, right, dropping in the same window. But obviously Backrooms likely pulls younger TikTok native audiences, cheaper to make, high buzz, strong legs if word obviously of mouth hits. Obviously, He-Man competes for the nostalgia IP crowd that overlaps heavily with Star Wars dads and genre fans. Right, obsession style, obviously less direct overlap but still eats into general audience date night traffic. In that environment, The Mandalorian and Grogu landing around 250 million. Brand power is still real. Mando and Grogu are stronger enough obviously to be on a movie and obviously on the big screen. But the ceiling is lower when the film feels like an extension of a streaming show rather than the must-see cinematic event. If Backroom Seaman and Obsession all overperform, the narrative becomes Star Wars is now just one IP among many, not the gravitational center of blockbuster season. And that's so goddamn sad to hear. Star Wars is the IP in my opinion. Obviously we have the episodes, right, episode 1 to 9, and obviously now we have the Mandalorian and Grogu, which is just like a spin-off show and or a spin-off movie from those bigger things. Obviously there is one movie coming up, Star Wars Starfighter, which I'm really excited about. Can't wait to see where that will go. But yeah, we just need to wait and see where that will land, obviously, quite literally, because it's a starship. But anyhow, I think it's kind of interesting to see these things, right? But obviously, what people are saying after watching it, general audience vibes. Obviously, it's a comfort food Star Wars movie. If you like the show, you slide right into this one as well. Obviously, Din and Grogu dynamic still works. Obviously, Ludwig Göransson's score is a standout as well. Plot feels thin and episodic as well. Visuals and action are competent but rarely breathtaking. Some sequences feel like upscale TV stuff. Obviously, stakes feel oddly contained for a theatrical comeback. No, you must see this on the big screen hook, I suppose. Obviously, Grogu's path, he's clearly more active within the Force now. People are wondering if the next film pushes him toward a new kind of Mandalorian Jedi hybrid identity. A lot of fans want him to speak properly in the sequel, or at least show more conscious moral agency. Obviously, Din's future, is he going to stay with the New Republic contractor or break away and become a wildcard power in the Outer Rim? Some expect a darker, more morally grey arc where he's forced to choose between Grogu's safety and the galactic stability. Obviously, with Rota the Hutt, politics stirred up, a sequel could lean hard into the crime syndicate wars, maybe tying into Crimson Dawn or other legacy factions as well. Obviously, people are already imagining a movie where Mando and Grogu interact with Ahsoka, Thrawn, and obviously the First Order seeds initially mini Mandoverse event film, which obviously Davefiloni was planning to make, but those things have been very silent, and I don't think those are still happening, right? But anyway, obviously Din Djarin is still the reluctant hero, but more openly paternal and less purely mercenary. Grogu no longer just a passenger, he intervenes, protects, and influences decisions as well. Obviously, because it doesn't burn major story cards, it leaves a lot of room for future films to escalate as well. Obviously, let's talk about the impact on future Star Wars films, including, like I said, the Star Wars Starfighter 2027 film, right? Obviously, instead of episodes 10, we're getting the movies anchored in specific corners of the galaxy. Mando, Ahsoka, maybe Starfighter pilots. That's healthier long term, but it demands each film justify itself cinematically, not just a more content, right? And that's kind of what people have been trying to think about, that these things are just content being pushed by Disney and they're not really special, you know. I'm not quite sure. I still remember the first season of The Mandalorian. It was heavily inspired by Akira Kurosawa movies like The Seventh Samurai and obviously Sergio Leone's spaghetti westerns as well. But now this movie felt like a big blockbuster movie with not a lot of, you know, great inspirations taken from somewhere else, in my opinion. Obviously, there have also been leaks and rumors that episodes 10, 11, and 12 are happening. So that could be really interesting to see as well. So obviously, if Starfighter leans hard on continuity without offering a fresh cinematic identity, it risks the same solid but not essential reception, right? Obviously, like I said, Starfighter could pick up the New Republic's struggle to project power, showing pilots on the front lines of that failure. echo Mando's themes of loyalty versus bureaucracy, and use Mando's moderate success as a flaw. Right, there you go. Then pushes harder, more risk, more spectacle, more thematic bite as well. If Lucasfilm keeps treating theatrical releases as slightly bigger episodes of Disney Plus shows, Star Wars risks becoming just another content pipeline, not an event. Obviously, The Mandalorian and Grogu proves that affection for characters can carry, obviously, a movie to decent numbers, but not to cultural dominance. The film doesn't fully answer the question, why did this need to be in theaters as well? The character foundations are strong, Din and Grogu still work, and the audience still care, and that's gold, right? And that's what I'm also here to talk about. I really enjoyed this movie. The Mandalorian and Grogu was great. I actually rewatched the entire series of The Mandalorian and also the Book of Boba Fett and Ahsoka, so that says a lot from me. I really liked watching the movie, and Star Wars is just a big part of my life. I won't hate something Star Wars, right? It's just some things have been bothering some people on the internet, and that's quite interesting, right? I just hope that upcoming projects like Ahsoka Season 2 and Star Wars Starfighter will be great as well. Darth Maul or Maul Shadow Lord was also awesome to see, and hopefully storytelling going on and moving forward in the Star Wars universe will be interesting and fun to watch, right? Obviously, impact on future Star Wars films, especially Star Wars Starfighter, like I said. What this movie signals to Lucasfilm, obviously, it's a character-driven film, or I suppose character-driven films are now the direction they need to go to. Streaming to theatrical transitions are risky, and sometimes work, and sometimes they don't work. Obviously, for example, The X-Files had a couple of movies, and many other TV shows had also a few movies, like the big ones, obviously, but that's the thing. Sometimes they work out and sometimes they don't work out. But obviously audience want cinematic ambition, not extended TV episodes. Obviously, what Starfighter must learn from this film: a tight, self-contained story, large-scale visual bold dogfights and visuals and creatures and stuff like that. A tone that is distinct, not Mando adjacent. Characters who change meaningfully and have a character arc. In this movie, I kinda had the feeling that Mando didn't really have a lot of character growth. Grogu was the one that actually had much to do. I think his story was much more interesting because the Mandalorian was sick and was also captured by the Hutts, and Grogu was the one who was actually going to, protect him and was going to get him back. So I guess that was really interesting to see as well. Obviously, a sense of stakes beyond a single mission as well. Obviously, how Mando and Grogu sets the stage, right? The film establishes New Republic military fragility, Outer Rim instability, and a post-Empire political vacuum. Obviously, Starfighter can build on these things by showing pilots on front lines of failing Republic, or I suppose the brand new resistant movement, obviously. The early seeds of a new empire rising as well, because Starfighter takes place after the rise of Skywalker, so a brand new threat will be looming on the galaxy. And yeah, I think that's kind of interesting. I'm going to make a separate video on that because I think that's much more interesting. Obviously, The Mandalorian absolutely thrives when it leans into the Western and the samurai DNA. If they are going to make a sequel, I would love to see much more Western and samurai influences, right? Obviously, the Mandalorian is a lone gunslinger, wandering from town to town, solving local problems and living by a personal code, and protecting a child who changes him, kind of like, obviously, I think that is another Lone Wolf and a Cub. I think that's like the movie, which obviously was or the Mandalorian was inspired by. So there we go. That's really interesting. Obviously, Din Djarin is not Luke, he's not Anakin, he's not Rey, he's not a Jedi. He's a Ronin, a masterless warrior, right? He's a gunslinger, a man with a code and a lawless frontier. And the thing is, if they won't be making a sequel, I would love to see these characters in the future, later down the line, I think if an older Grogu, a Grogu that can actually speak and has a certain Ronin aesthetic to him, a masterless warrior from both sides, the Mandalorian race, I suppose, and the Jedi, I think that could be really cool to see as well. Kind of like his father, just like the Mandalorian, Din Djarin. Grogu Djarin, or Din Grogu or whatever, could also have some kind of like lone wolf slash the man with no name influences. And I think that could be really cool. Like imagine a Yoda samurai Ronin slash cowboy walking around in the Star Wars universe. That's something that is new and interesting to do. So there we go. Obviously, Grogu fits the samurai tradition beautifully. Obviously, Lone Wolf and Cub, right? Hojimbo and the Seven Samurai. Grogu gives Din a purpose, a moral compass, and a legacy as well. So there you go. Obviously, it gives Star Wars a distinct tone again. Obviously, Star Wars has many flavors like Jedi mysticism, political drama, space opera, war film, crime underworld, and animated adventure. The Mandalorian's flavor is space western samurai mythology. That's very niche, and it's a very big identity of what the Mandalorian is. That's what makes it stand out, right? So there we go. I think that's really interesting. When the Mandalorian drifts away from its western slash samurai roots, it becomes unfocused and loses its mystic weight, right? Obviously, let's talk about the cast a bit. Obviously, Pedro Pascal, Brandon Wayne, and Lateef Crowder all played the Mandalorian. Pedro Pascal played obviously the Mandalorian without the mask, and Lateef Crowder was obviously the stunt double. Same goes for Brandon Wayne. And I think, I have to highlight these guys because they're also the Mandalorian, right? And the same is for Pedro Pascal. So there we go. Obviously, we also have Grogu, right? A New Republic base on a planet. And obviously, we have some criminal slash underworld figures. So there we go. As well, there are certain persons that I want to talk about in the movie, like Gara Zeb Orrelios. Obviously, role in the movie, Zeb appears as a New Republic Special Forces advisor stationed at the Philadelphia base. He's not a main character, but he's a bridge between animation and live action, and he gives the New Republic scenes more personality. Zeb gives Din the real talk about the mission, that the New Republic is stretched thin and that Hut space is a powder keg. He's the one who warns Din that Rota's rescue could destabilize the region as well. And Zeb Orrelios, I love to see him, man. I really love Star Wars Rebels, and I just especially love Zeb. I'm not quite sure, he's like a really interesting looking species, right, as well. And, if you grew up with the Clone Wars and Rebels, like I did, Zeb is one of those characters that is always fun to see around, so there we go. We have Colonel Ward, played by Sigourney Weaver. She's the New Republic mission commander who hires Din and Grogu. Obviously, she's kind of like a mix of Mon Mothma's political clarity, Hera Syndulla's military pragmatism, and a Western sheriff who knows the frontier is slipping away. She gives Din the mission, but also pressures him to deliver Rota alive, not because she cares about the Hutt, but because she wants stability. And to be honest, it was really cool to see Sigourney Weaver in the movie, but I would have loved to see her do more. She was kind of like an advisor and a pilot, but maybe she could have rescued Grogu or helped Mando, kind of like Bo-Katan could have been, right? I mean, it would have been really cool to see Bo-Katan, the armorer, right, or other characters from the Mandalorian show in the movie, but that didn't happen. But that was quite alright because it was a standalone movie. That's what also made it work, right? Obviously, we also had Rota the Hutt. Rota is the central MacGuffin, but with emotional weight. He's no longer the baby from the Clone Wars rescued by Ahsoka Tano and Anakin Skywalker. He's a traumatized, manipulated political hostage, right? Rota forces Din to confront the question: what happens to a child who isn't protected? This deepens Din's bond with Grogu. And that's kind of interesting as well. In my opinion, Rota was a great inclusion, and obviously the arena fight scene as well as his character development and character depth, right, was very interesting to see. So he's kind of like the same age as Grogu, right, but because species age differently, Rota has become a stronger, fearful, stronger warrior, right, and Grogu is still this cute little, baby Yoda, So what happens if a child doesn't have protection? And that's exactly what happened with Rota. We also have Anzelians, right? Babufrick species, and they provide comedic relief, expand the criminal tech underworld, and show how small species survive by being obviously not seen. Suppose there were a few deleted scenes from the movie that would have included IG-11, right? From the first season, and obviously later down the line from the third season as well. And it could have been really cool to see, obviously voiced by Taika Waititi. but he was probably cut from the movie, which, you know, fair enough. We also have the Ardenian, obviously Hugo Durant, or obviously the same species from Rio Durant, which obviously they're both connected in a way. Both are also voiced by, you know, great movie directors. Jon Favreau was Rio Durant, and Martin Scorsese, the GOAT himself, absolute cinema himself, was obviously Hugo Durant. And in my opinion, it was fun to see this, you know. Why the hell not? It was so cool, right? So, yeah, I think, you know, Din asks him some questions, and Martin Scorsese, or Marty Scorsese's, his voice is clearly in the, you know, character, and it's also interesting as well. I mean, I didn't mind it. I just hope they're going to continue this trend with the Ardenians, that every time an Ardenian shows up in a movie or a show, it needs to be voiced by a famous movie director, right? I mean, come on. You had Jon Favreau, Martin Scorsese. I could see Quentin Tarantino voice one. You know what? You know, just imagine, right? Or Keegan and Kay, right? Jordan Peele and Keegan-Michael Kay, right? They're a duo, right? So if you were to have two Ardenians talking to one another and like a upcoming Star Wars project, that would be very funny to see. Anyhow, one of the highlights for me was the arena fight, right? The champion gladiator, obviously Rota the Hutt, other dangerous species from Star Wars were thrown in there together with obviously the Mandalorian, and this, you know, reminds people of that chessboard from A New Hope and later also from the other movies. And it was really fun to see, you know, that is actually what Rota needs to fight. So there you go. Obviously the Hutt twins, seen from the Book of Boba Fett, they appear as secondary antagonists trying to reclaim Hutt power after Jabba's death, right? They represent the fractured Hutt cartel as well, and they force Din to choose between handing Rota to the New Republic or handing Rota to the Hutts, protecting Rota and Grogu's moral compass. Din chooses the third option as well. So there you go. Other supporting characters like New Republic pilots. Obviously Dave Filoni, Strapper Wolf was in the movie as a little cameo, which was kind of interesting. But yeah, I guess that's pretty much it for me today. I really wanted to talk about The Mandalorian and Grogu. I had tons to say about it, and Star Wars is just one of those, you know, franchises that I don't really get enough with, because, you know, it's always so fun to see a brand new project. And yeah, okay, that's pretty much it for me, ladies and gentlemen. This review was quite long, but I hope you just enjoyed it as well, you know, like I enjoyed making it. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will check you later, or should I say, this is the way. Goodbye, everyone.
The kid will live centuries beyond me. I won't always be around to protect him. Are you scared? You should be. Do we run?